Guys, welcome. This is the system that busy men need to stay in shape. If you're someone that feels like you keep falling off, the issue that you're having isn't with motivation, it's with structure. And most men don't fail because they don't care or because they're lazy. It's because the structure that they're running is only going to work in their favor when their life is calm. But if you're here watching this video, the chances are that your life is very rarely calm. So what this video is going to do is give you a system or a framework that you can apply from today, and it's going to help you bridge a gap between where you are right now and where you want to go. But before we get into that, I'm going to introduce myself. If you do not know, my name is Cav, and I'm the founder of CBK Elite Coaching. And what I do is I basically help men reclaim their edge after losing it in a busy life without overcomplicating the process. I've been in this industry for almost 20 years, and I have worked with so many different people from all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, busy dads, lifestyle clients, competitive clients. The one pattern that is the most consistent in the men that stay in shape is not that they do more, is that they do a minimum. Now that sounds like a negative, but stick with me because we're going to cover that now. But before we get into that, let's talk about something that I call restart culture. And this is what happens to an awful lot of men that don't get in the shape that they're looking for. These men depend solely on motivation. And if, in case you didn't know, motivation does fuck all for any of us. You can be motivated watching an Instagram reel, but that same feeling isn't going to wake you up out of bed at 4 a.m. when the alarm goes off and you're just not feeling that shit. So what that means is it's going to lead you down a garden path to feeling like you're doing some good shit. And generally when you're motivated like that, you're going to do way more than what's really necessary. And then it's going to start off this negative feedback loop of, I'm going to restart on Monday. Because the guys that rely on motivation will find out the hard way that motivation goes out the fucking window when life gets loud. And then they go, do you know what? I've had one slip. The whole week is ruined. I'll restart again on Monday. They do that enough times. And what happens is they build this identity of I'm inconsistent. I'm lazy. I can't do this. And then they start to believe that, but they also start to converse with that as well. So this is where negotiation comes in, where they start to kind of go, a justification. I'm going to justify to myself why I should start today, why it's okay that, it wasn't my fault that it went this way. And then it just keeps going, and they don't get anywhere. That's always the case. And these are the examples. I'll start tomorrow. I'll train when I feel better. I had a bad day. You know what? This happened. My boss was a prick today. I don't feel like it. And here's the shift in your mindset that's going to change everything around that. You don't need your life to be calm to get in shape. You just need a structure that's going to survive your life in order to get in shape. That is the big difference here. Busy isn't the issue. Chaos is the issue. And one thing that fixes chaos is systems. And I have 3 systems that I give my elite clients that helps them stay in shape. Here's the 3 systems. The first system we call the minimum standard system. So remember when I said earlier that the guys that stay in shape don't do more, they do the minimum. This is what I'm talking about. The guys that struggle the most and rely on motivation, they set the bar here. But the problem with setting the bar here is what they can achieve realistically on a day-to-day basis sits around here. And they're not going to be able to bridge that gap. And that's what starts off the negative cycle of restarting again on Monday, becoming Mr. Inconsistent, and not really getting anywhere and just kicking a can down the road. But these 3 minimums are going to keep you anchored in what it is that you're doing and keep you getting some form of consistency and momentum. Like I always say, you don't have to be 100% every day. You can be 10%. Even if it's 1%, it's better than nothing. And that's going to do more for you mentally than anything that would be done to perfection, because you're not going to be able to uphold that anyway. So the first minimum is a protein anchor. So if you've watched my social media, you've heard me talk about anchors, and anchors are basically sure things that we know, regardless of how the day is looking, regardless of how we're feeling, that we can get these in without a doubt. So protein is more important because although it's only a fraction of the full picture, it is better than nothing, and it keeps us in the game. It helps us stay fuller for longer, it helps us build tissue, and it helps us recover from any activity that we've done. So what we need to do here is hit the protein daily, because it's going to keep us closer to what we're looking for more than anything else. Carbs are fats, you're just going to put on excess weight, and it's going to lead you down the same path. The second minimum is steps. So where most people get wrong with steps is they look at it as cardio tool. But really what it is the stress weapon. So the idea behind steps is that they're highly accessible. We can do them anytime, anywhere. We might not want to do them anytime or anywhere, but it's a whole lot easier than getting on a Stairmaster for 40 minutes. And the main difference between Stairmaster and steps is it doesn't drain the living shit out of you. And that's probably what's most important here. So your steps minimum is key. Minimum number 3 is training minimums. So we don't need to train, 2.5, 3 hours, 6 times a week. Nobody does that shit. No one in their right mind does that shit. What you need is 30 to 40 minutes of proper focused work 3 to 4 times a week. That is going to be inconsistency forever, no matter who you are. And again, it isn't everything, it isn't a lot, but it's a whole lot better than absolutely fuck all. So that's what we're going to work for. A busy week doesn't need perfection, it just needs minimums. Minimums are key. Your second system is the anchor meal system. So this kind of hitches off the same thing with the protein, but with food. So what we're looking for here is a lack of guesswork. The minute we start guessing, we start drifting. The minute we start drifting, anything can happen from there. So what we need is 2 meals a day that we can anchor and know for sure, no matter what's going on, no matter how we feel, no matter how we are, we can get these in every day consistently. The 2 meals I pick the most are breakfast and dinner, because the majority of us are going to be at home for breakfast and we're going to be at home for dinner. Regardless of what time that is, you still have all of the things you need at your fingertips, at your disposal to stay on track. So we can keep those 2 meals anchored, and 2 meals isn't enough. So we'll add one more extra in and we'll call this a flex meal. But the same idea applies. It has to be something that's a sure thing that we know that we can get no matter where we are. One thing I give an awful lot of my clients is basically a chicken fillet roll, but in a wrap. Because no matter where you are, there's going to be a deli somewhere. They're going to have chicken, they're going to have veg, they're going to have wraps. And that's going to be something that will kind of keep you on track, not feel like you're eating out of a lunchbox if that's a big issue. But more importantly, going to keep you on your targets, keep you under your calories, and keep you consistent. So that's one thing that we need there as well, is the anchor meal system. System number 3 is the 3 weekly checkpoint system. So these are the things that are going to help us kind of keep tabs on where we are. Because what happens is, if we're not sure of what we're doing and how we're getting on, it's going to be way easier for us to shut the door on it and give up and start again on Monday. But the 3 checkpoints, the first one will be the scales. So what most people do, and they do it wrong, is they weigh once a week. And I'm not usually against that, because most people get too emotionally attached to their scale weight. However, what you want to do is weigh daily, but you want to not just take the daily weight, you want to take the weekly average at the end of the week. So every Sunday, take every weigh-in that you've done that week and get the average of it, and then compare your weekly averages opposed to your daily targets. That's going to help you emotionally detach from the weight. The second thing, and it's also going to help with the detachment of scale weight, checkpoint number 2 is going to be photos. And I say this to my own clients a lot. Your weight isn't always going to reflect your progress. Your photos are never going to lie. So you might be up weight, but your pictures look better. So that is the silver lining in that there straight away. And that mixed with the weight is going to give you a better idea where you're going. But it's not going to give you the whole picture. The last one is checkpoint 3, and that's performance. So is your strength improving? Is your form improving? Is your execution getting better? Are you finding that you have a little bit more in the gas tank by the end of a session? These are the things mixed with the pictures and the weight to tell us how you're getting on. And not only that, but it's going to give you an idea of where you're progressing and where you need to work more. And that's what's going to get you into the nitty gritty of progress, get you into this feedback loop of, this is who I am, this is what I do, I have control on this. And that's going to be a huge driver in getting you from where you are now to where you want to go. So we don't chase perfection, we chase direction. And how we do that is by keeping tabs, monitoring and adjusting when the time is right. And here's the real elite part. Most people think that once they start getting in shape, that their mind is going to follow that, and then they'll feel better about themselves, they'll have a better attitude towards things. But that is completely backwards. The physique is built by standards, and the standards are built by identity. So remember what I said at the start, where you become, I'm Mr. Inconsistent. You need to bin that shit, because all that's going to do is have you easily justified towards yourself when you start negotiating to start again tomorrow, start again next Monday, start again next month. So we don't want negotiation, we don't want drama, we just want execution. And that's the difference between guys who are stuck and guys that stay in shape. So if you want help applying this system properly, I've built a community specifically for men that are struggling with this and that need to reclaim their edge. The community, ironically, is called Reclaim Your Edge. And what Reclaim Your Edge has is daily structure prompts, weekly standards checks, and no hypes, just execution. So this is all like-minded individuals chasing the same goal, doing the same shit, and all doing it together. That is the big difference there. If you can have a community around you while you're doing this shit, it's going to make it a whole lot easier. Anyone that has a training partner knows exactly what I'm talking about. On the days you don't want to go to the gym, but your training partner's going, you know you're going. So if you're tired of restarting, Stop chasing motivation. Build minimum standards, anchor your meals, track your checkpoints, and become the man who doesn't negotiate. Calm execution wins every time without fail. I'll see you inside.